torture, not laugh at them or chain them or let them go without food or fight with one another. So the humane treatment model took hold. Reform happened in asylums. Unfortunately, again, what started out as a good idea went bad. Again, these efforts of Dick Spinell and other people were soon, again, overwhelmed by the numbers of people. You remember what I said the first day of class, as many as 46% of people may receive a diagnosis of some mental illness at some point in their life. There just was not the capacity or space in asylums. No matter how kind-hearted and humane people like Spinell and Dix were, these places just quickly became super overcrowded. And without much treatment to offer, it turned bad and ugly again fairly quickly. Did you have a question all the way back? Yeah. Did the people, she says, and I'll repeat these questions in case people can't hear them, to the people who actually were put in the asylums, did they have much choice? And the answer is no, not really at that time. In the 13th and 1400 lunacy trials, there, the city was then kind of your guardian, and you didn't really have much choice. Even later, in the 15, 16, 1700s, if family members wanted to have someone from the family put into asylums, an asylum, they could, and then the person themselves really had no choice over the matter. And in some cases, people were just left there literally to die, and they never left. For other people, they were able to kind of work their way in the system of the time and be released. People typically who didn't have as severe of a mental illness. But it wasn't until really the 18 and 1900s in particular, where there was a whole series of court cases that really helped to define what the rights of people are with mental illness, and they don't need to be confined for the rest of their life. It's a violation of their human rights, and gave people with mental illness choice. And so chapter 16, all the way to the end of our book, covers all of those legal precedents that happened through the course of time to shift the balance from a person with a mental illness being put into a hospital or asylum with no choice or rights whatsoever to giving them some rights, and there's still some room for improvement there. So let me break out of this for a second here, and I'm going to show you a short video of, hopefully, of a hospital today. This is a hospital where I did my internship. This is Bellevue Hospital in New York, and I want you to just take a look at this and ask yourself, have things gotten better?
We're getting pizza, which we never get, hardly ever. All we get is, is mashed potatoes. We don't get coleslaw. This isn't a diner. This picture is not for kids. This picture is for help other people. What I'm trying to say is that what I'm trying to say is, let me just speak, this isn't a funny conversation. What I'm trying to say is that when people are in pain and they need help, let me talk, please. Please let me talk, goddammit. I'm trying to say, I can't take it with her, right? Let me talk.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. I won't tell you.
No, here's my
She feels very mighty. I don't understand. What's your jealous?
Please don't touch me, please.
Want to wear a jacket?
No, I don't want to wear a jacket. They're fucking with me too, those workers. They're fucking with me too. I always do it every night.
We eat a piece of that.
I can't make up.
Yes, you can. Come on.
All right, that was just a super short snippet. It's something from America Undercover called Bellevue Inside Out. So you didn't get a huge sense of what the hospital was like there, but there was a list of a long line of people there waiting to go in, and Cheryl was telling you that they had pizza today, and that was kind of something to look forward to, or normally they have mashed potatoes or whatever, and somebody else was kind of irritating her, and then they went in to get their food. So does that look like just the little snippet that you saw there, does that look like a safe place or a safe haven for people to go? What was your impression? No? Let's do like a straw poll. So how many people thought that looked like it wasn't, like the plaza, it wasn't a beautiful place to stay, but it looked, like it looked reasonable, it was okay, okay? This is one of my hidden talents that I always tell students. I have the ability to look out at a sea of hands and come up with a very precise number. So that was 104 people who said that it looked okay. Now, how many of you thought, looking at that, no, it wasn't the plaza. It was like, ridiculous. Like it was stark walls and people had to wait in line to get their food. Really? That just doesn't look like we've come very far. How many people think that? About 40. Okay. So most people thought that it looked pretty reasonable. So suggesting that we probably come, a little bit further than the asylums. I didn't have a video, unfortunately, to show you what asylums looked like in that day. But compared to what the pictures look like, maybe we have come a little bit further. All right. If we jump ahead back in time here, in the 1800s was a particularly interesting time if you were a scientist, if you were a physician, because this was really the beginning of neuroscience. There were people making all these fascinating discoveries about the brain and behavior, from learning what happens when people have syphilis left untreated, it goes to the brain, wreaks all sorts of havoc, from when people have a stroke, and then they can no longer speak, and then you take a look at their brain after they died. In an autopsy, you could see, well, wow, that's what a stroke looks like in the brain. And it seems to be happening over and over again in the same area of the brain, this area of the brain in the left frontal lobes, that a neurologist at the time named Broca actually got the whole area named after him. His name is Broca's area, the area of the brain that when people sometimes have strokes, maybe you've had people in your family who experience a stroke and they lose their ability to produce speech or speak out loud. That's typically associated with Broca's area. We now know a lot more about the brain and productive speech, and there are lots of areas of the brain that are involved in that, not just Broca. But at the time, if you were a neurologist and you were able to demonstrate an area of the brain that was associated with a particular kind of behavior, here, talking, Broca's area, because Broca discovered it. There's another area in the left temporal lobe called Wernicke's area. That's an area that's associated with your ability to understand the spoken word or understand speech. You have damage here. All of a sudden, people could be saying stuff to you, and then you have no idea what that means. You can't comprehend it. So all of these fascinating discoveries were happening where people were really making these relationships between a behavior and the brain. And so that led a number of people to think, well, wait a second. If all of our behavior is somehow controlled by the brain, then when somebody's behavior is a little bit off, a little bit weird, a little bit doesn't make any sense, that must be something wrong with their brain. And so people were generating interesting ideas about how the brain might be responsible for mental illness in the 1800s. At the same time, however, there were neurologists who were looking at some odd behavior, things that we today consider to be mental illness, and they could not find, with the neurology at the time, any neurological explanation for it. Charcot is one of these people. He was a neurologist who was at the very top of society. He came from a long line of family physicians, and he was a neurologist, which was a hot new field at the time. He started seeing these people who were having these symptoms, these odd behaviors that looked like something must be going wrong in the brain, but they could not determine any area of the brain that was going wrong. So, for example, someone would come in and claim that their hand was paralyzed. just the right hand, nothing else, nothing in the arm, no extreme pain, but just a hand paralyzed, glove paralysis. And it was, people weren't making this stuff up. They weren't saying, my hand's paralyzed, that if you smack them, they, no, you could smack them. It's not good clinical care, but you could smack them and they wouldn't feel it at all. They put their hand over a flame and they wouldn't recoil. If their skin, was burning, you could smell it and it was singeing, but they really, were no pain. But there was no neurological explanation for this. And so Charcot became very interested in these particular kinds of cases, these people who had neurological symptoms but no known neurological cause. And he studied under a number of people at the time, including a Jesuit priest named Maximilian Hill, who I just think is hilarious for a priest to be named Hill, and learned some of the techniques that other people were using to try to combat these symptoms. Broadly speaking, these symptoms were called hysteria. If you've heard hysterical, I just said the word hysterical. What does that mean, hysterical? Anyone? Yeah. Out of control. What else does hysterical mean? Hilarious, which means funny. Okay, so it could mean out of control. It could mean riotously funny. And what does hysteria have to do with like neurological symptoms? Hysteria, literally translated. Anybody know what this means? You're on the right path. So it's like hysterectomy for women is it like it means wandering uterus. Literally translated, wandering uterus. Why a wandering uterus would be causing someone's hand to be paralyzed, I don't know. Although that does seem kind of funny thinking about it now. But these were by and large the people who were having these symptoms were women. And well, if it's women, it's got to be something to do with their reproductive organs. Why not the uterus? It's off somehow wandering around causing symptoms. So that was the reason that term was applied because most of the people at the time, at least who were reporting to people like Charcot, neurologists, not that men didn't have these symptoms, but the women were the ones that were seeking help for them. And so they were the ones that people started to generate these ideas. And so women, it's a women's thing, their reproductive thing. You could pay attention to that's got to be their uterus. So that's where the term hysteria comes from. It has nothing to do with their uterus. What today we would consider like this example I gave you of the hand being paralyzed would be conversion disorder, one of the somatoform disorders. That's in chapter 7. We're not really going to cover those, or 8. We're not really going to cover those, but they're fascinating to listen to. So Charcot was studying under this priest, Maximilian Hill, and there's another guy at the time, Franz Mesmer, who was doing these things with magnets. What does the term mesmerize mean? Hypnotize. That's Mesmer, what he was doing, he went on the road with his show and his big box of magnets, and he replaced magnets. What he was doing, he thought, was moving the animal spirits within the person around, realigning them somehow so that they could then not have these symptoms of paralysis or blindness or whatever. Pretty soon he ditched the magnets, it was too much to carry on the roads, big box, they're heavy, and just started to use his voice and his arms. And so what he was doing was hypnotizing people without the magnets. And he would find that after hypnosis, sometimes people would wake up and their symptoms would be gone. Charcot was very fascinated by this, the whole idea of hypnosis, started to use that in his own practice, learning that some people after hypnosis would no longer have those symptoms. One of the students of Charcot was someone named Breuer, and then what came after Breuer, who said that Breuer was Freud. You probably all heard lots and lots about Freud. You take an introductory psychology. And so the whole model of Freud, this whole model of behavior, really came from the neurology of Charcot. And mesmerizing, hypnotizing. Freud didn't mess around too much with hypnosis early in his career. He did later. He adopted something called free association as a technique, the idea that people should just freely talk about whatever comes to mind. And then what Freud would do was interpret what people were saying and try to ascribe meaning to these what seemed to be ramblings of people just freely associating. Nothing was without meaning in Freud's model. It all meant something. And the book talks a little bit more about Freud. And I'm sure you've heard about Freud, so I'm not going to go into Freud in a lot of detail. But Freud and Freudian and psychoanalysis thinking really predominated from the early part of the 1900s until the 1950s, even though in the 1920s people like John Watson were starting to reject the idea of Freud and even reject the idea of neurology. And they were, John Watson was a very strict behaviorist. P.S. Skinner in the 1950s, a very famous behavioral psychologist, kind of rejected the ideas of Freud, the idea that having people freely associate and that there are things that are happening outside of people's awareness. They thought that was all gobbledygook. That just is ridiculous. Who am I as a psychologist to put any meaning on that? Instead, all we can do as psychologists, according to Skinner, was observe people's behavior and record it and notice how it changes. And that people's behavior can change in reliable ways. If you want a behavior to increase in its frequency, you reinforce it, reward it. If you want a behavior to decrease, you punish it. Super simple in Skinner's view of the world. Now, 1960s, though, people recognized that these models were too simple. What about the brain? People's behavior changes when there's damage to the brain. And what might be kind of setting the stage, even if somebody doesn't have an insult or a neurological injury to the brain, might be something that's happening in their genes. So in the 1950s and 60s was the discovery of DNA and understanding the human genome. We've now decoded the human genome less than 10 years ago. We know how many genes there are in the human body, roughly speaking, somewhere between 22 and 25,000 genes. So behavior genetics as a field began really taking off in the 1950s and 60s. And here, we didn't know anything about the genome back then, but we did know how many, the genetic similarity between, say, identical twins and fraternal twins. Any twins in here? Anybody a twin? Surprising that we don't have very many. Okay. So we do have twins. Anybody identical twins? No. Fraternal twins? Any identical twins? Identical twins? Yeah, okay, thank you. So we have at least one. I'm sorry, I've not seen the, guys will just have to start yelling, out, like, here, I'm a twin, then I'll see you. So we'll talk a lot about twin studies, because what started in the 1960s still continues today, where we look at twins as a way of understanding people's genes. And then, getting closer to today, people started to reject the idea, just as Freud was rejected for, one of the criticisms of Freud was that he wasn't very scientific. You can't really measure some of the things that he's talking about. Who are you to listen to that and make meaning out of it? You can't measure the unconscious. Actually, you can now. We know you can measure it. But at the time, people were rejecting that. So behaviorism became really strong. But then people said, wait a second, people aren't just these automatons that just behave, like a rat pressing a bar, give them a reward, they'll change their behavior. People also think, and the way they think actually dramatically influences their behavior and their emotions and their feelings. And so cognitive models of behavior really started to take off in the 1960s and continue today, looking at things like attributions. If something bad has happened to you, to what do you attribute that bad thing happening? You find yourself on the waiting list for a class. Why did that happen to you? What are the attributions that you make? Well, it's that UC Berkeley, has a crappy system. If you have that kind of attribution, that's likely going to influence your behavior and the way you feel about it. Or if you have an attribution like it's completely out of my control, I don't know what to do. Or I'm just going to go to student services and do something about it. If you have those kind of attribution, your behavior is going to be different. So that's just one example of some of the cognitive models, and we'll talk about attributions when we talk about mood disorders, that really became popular starting in the 1960s. And then neuroscience really took off again in the 1970s. Of course, cognitive neuroscience. Anybody here is taking Psychology 120, one of our very popular classes in the psychology psychology major, is a very hot field today. Began in the 1970s. We really started to better understand areas of the brain, how they're linked to behavior, how different areas of the brain communicate with one another, how genes help to regulate particular areas of the brain, and how the brain in turn regulates the expression of our genes. All of these things, we didn't know that in the 70s, but we know those sorts of things today. And then culture. Finally, starting in maybe the 1980s or so, and continuing in today, people started to ask seriously whether or not people from different cultures experience mental illness in the same way. So the symptoms of schizophrenia are pretty universal across the world. People have identified the symptoms of schizophrenia in Western cultures, in Eastern cultures, in remote cultures where there's no Western influence at all. So it's not culturally specific to the United States. But the meaning of those symptoms in different cultures varies quite a bit. So finally, taking seriously culture has happened. And so today, I would say, in 2014 or so, most people view mental illness in a multidimensional way, and sometimes it's helpful to think of it as wheels on a spoke. But there are multiple contributors to mental illness. There may be social and cultural contributors, there may be genetic contributors, there may be brain contributors, there may be early psychological childhood development contributors, there may be emotional contributors. There are many things that all work together, and that's what we'll be spending the rest of the semester really emphasizing, are the multiple causes that work together to produce today what we consider to be mental illness. So that's what we'll spend most of the semester covering the rest of these. And what we'll do now is take a look at whether or not we think we've learned from history. So this was just a post that was 2010, trying to understand schizophrenia from a blogger. And here's the New York Times. Wake Forest outlasts the schizophrenic Texas. I don't know what that has to do with a basketball game. What this particular headline and many, many people do is that they confuse schizophrenia with a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, what today we call a dissociative identity disorder. And that's absolutely not schizophrenia. What about this? There's lots and lots of TV shows. Here's just two examples of them, Intervention or Hoarders. Are these shows any different than the people in the 1500s in St. Mary's of Bethlehem parading through for entertainment at the expense of other people with mental illness? Are we still getting entertainment value from people with mental illness? Yes. But are we also learning? Is there something that we can say that is maybe helpful about these shows that you wouldn't have seen in St. Mary's? No, nothing helpful. Anybody? Anything helpful? Yes. So she says, yes, maybe because just having awareness, and then maybe you know somebody who has one of these issues, and then you might be in a position to actually help them, or maybe at least be more sympathetic. All right, it's time to go. We'll talk next week, or sorry, Thursday, about paradox.